In 1979, the NBA created the three-point line.
The three-point line.
The three-point shot has just taken over the game.
Fast forward 44 years later, and this line has become the most valuable shot in basketball.
More three-point shots than they made during the entire 1980s.
But how did we get here? Before the three-point line, the NBA was dominated by big men. It made sense. The taller you were, the closer you were to the hoop, and the more unstoppable your shot was. We saw this with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Wilt Chamberlain. There was nothing you could do to stop Kareem's hook shot, and that was the reason he finished with 38,387 points in his career, the most in NBA history at the time, and a record most people thought would never be broken. And Wilt was even more dominant just a few years before him, holding almost every insane NBA record, but none bigger than dropping 100 points in one game. And then you had Bill Russell on the defensive end. He was the only player who ever came close to stopping Wilt, and alongside a loaded Celtics team, would become the first dynasty in NBA history, winning 11 championships. Ever since the NBA was formed in 1947, big men ruled the entire league. But just a little over 30 years later, before the 1979 season, the NBA was seeing a drastic fall in TV ratings and in-game fan attendance. And not only that, but the average points scored per game had been declining for the past 10 years. The NBA had already seen Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, and Bob Pettit retire. The league is in big trouble. 1979 was the year that would change the NBA forever. After seeing their worst decade yet, two players that would end up saving the league were just entering the NBA. Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. These two were not only drafted to the two biggest markets in sports, but they also met in the finals multiple times, which created the biggest rivalry the NBA has ever seen. They were two of the best players in the league the second they stepped on the floor. Magic was the premier point guard, setting the new standard for passing and playmaking, while Bird took the league by storm and showed fans a new way to play offense, the three-point shot. There couldn't have been a better time for two game-changing players to enter the NBA. 1979 was the same season the three-point line was first introduced. So in a league that was run by big men, with scoring and fan interest dropping every single year, here came two players that weren't big men and made basketball entertaining to watch. Then throw in a brand new way to score more points, and you had a sport that would change the world. Once the three-point line was introduced, NBA teams were trying to figure out if it was worth shooting them or not. Chris Ford made the first three in NBA history, and he was also third in the league in threes made during its first season with 70. Brian Taylor led with 90 made. Rick Barry was second with 73. Joe Hassett was fourth with 69, and Larry Bird as a rookie finished off the top 5 with making 58. Although the three-point line was added this year, it was mainly Magic and Bird who brought the fans back to the NBA. Magic Johnson led his Lakers to the NBA Finals and won Finals MVP as a rookie. This began a streak that didn't break until 1990, with either the Boston Celtics or the Los Angeles Lakers being in the finals. In 1979, teams were attempting 2.8 threes per game and making just about 0.8 of them. And over the next 4 years, teams were only making about 0.5 threes a game, so you would be lucky to see a team make just 1 3 in a game. But even with so little threes being shot, scoring rose all the way up to 110 points per game. Dale Ellis was the man known for the three-point shot back in the 1980s and 90s. He held the record for the most career three-point field goals made multiple times in his career, until Reggie Miller finally passed him. When Ellis retired, he was second in NBA history for three-pointers made, and he currently sits at 29th overall. 1,719 threes made over a 19-year NBA career. After the fast-paced, exciting playstyle from Magic Johnson in the 80s, from 1988 to 1994, the league saw a decrease in scoring, seeing the league average of points go from 109.2 all the way down to 101.5, and it was dropping every single year. The pace of the game went from 100.5 to 95.1 possessions per game. Teams were going back to playing slow, but before the 1994-1995 season, the NBA decided to try to go back to 80s style basketball, moving the three-point line from 23.9 feet all the way down to only 22 feet. Players like John Starks, Reggie Miller, and Del Curry thrived with the new three-point line. John led the league with 217 made. Reggie was 5th, making 195, and led the league at 42.1%. Dell was 14th with 154 made and 4th in percentage at 40.2. Teams averaged almost 10 three-point attempts per game, and the league got better at shooting them, averaging 33.3% on the year. While the NBA saw record highs on makes, attempts, and efficiency, it didn't solve any of the scoring problems. So just 3 years later, the three-point line was moved back, and and that's where it stayed ever since. And around the same time in 1996, one of the greatest shooters ever was drafted. Ray Allen was one of the first NBA players to become a three-point sharpshooter, and with his help, players like him would change the way basketball was played. In the year 2000, three-point attempts went all the way up to 13.7 a game, and the Kings attempted the most per game, shooting 20.2. That's almost 14 more threes per game compared to the Clippers shooting the most in 1979, only 5.5 per game. Fast forward 40 years to present day, and the Boston Celtics attempt the most three in the NBA, 42.6. By 2005, the best three-point shooter at the time, Reggie Miller, retired. He left the NBA making the most threes in league history, with 2,560. But this record wouldn't last for long. At just 28 years old, Ray Allen had already made 1,687 threes in his career. And that very next year, he broke the record for most threes made in one year, with 269. And by 2011, he became the new king of the three-point shot, breaking Reggie Miller's all-time three-point record. During the 2000s, scoring in the NBA stayed low. Teams were only averaging 95 points per game throughout the entire decade. And despite the low scoring, teams were attempting more and more threes every single year. In the year 2000, teams were attempting 13.7 a game, and by 2010, that number was up to 18.1. 2009 was a big year for the NBA, because the man that would change basketball forever was drafted. Coming into the NBA, everyone knew Steph's game revolved around the three-point shot, but no one knew how much his play style would affect the game of basketball. As soon as he came into the NBA, he set the three-point rookie record with 166 threes made. After suffering through what some thought were career-ending ankle injuries, Klay Thompson was drafted in 2011, and paired with Steph, hit 111 threes in 66 games his rookie year. In the 2013 season, Curry sank 272 threes, which was the most threes ever made in one season by one player. Klay was right behind him, making 223. Teams were starting to realize just how valuable the three-point shot was. Scoring rose to 101 points per game, and threes were up to 21.5 on average. Curry and the Warriors took it to a whole nother level 2 years later in 2015, nailing 286 threes, breaking the three-point record again. Except 2015 was different. The Warriors ran through the Western Conference playoffs, on their way to beating LeBron in the finals. Now there was no way teams could avoid the three-point revolution. The Warriors and Steph were changing basketball, and now they proved they could win while doing it. The next year in 2016, he shattered his own record again, 402 threes in 1 year, on his way to winning the first ever unanimous MVP.
There are only 10 players in the history of the NBA to have back-to-back MVP awards, and most of them are either in the Hall of Fame or on their way to the Hall of Fame.
Team scoring rose to 102.7, and team threes went up to 24.1. Even though the Warriors by themselves were shooting 31.6 threes every single game, the mid-range shot was dying right before our eyes. Teams no longer valued the mid-range shot. The shot that was made famous by two of the greatest to ever play the game now seemed like an afterthought. Why would you shoot a long two when a layup counts for exactly the same? And if you're gonna shoot that far away, you might as well take a three. 2016 was also the year Mike D'Antoni and James Harden joined together on the Houston Rockets. Harden was already putting up MVP numbers, but these two together would take it to a whole new level. During their 4 years together, with the help of the three-point line, the Rockets revolutionized the NBA offense. Before Harden and D'Antoni, no NBA team had ever shot more than 35% of their total shots from the three-point line. But by 2016, the Rockets shot 45% of all their shots from three, something that had never been done before. And over the next 3 years, this number rose to over 50% of all their shots coming from beyond the three-point line. Harden himself through 2017 and 2019 was averaging 35 points per game and shooting over 55% of all of his shots from three. This is exactly how Mike D'Antoni wanted his team to play. It was a new look NBA, only shoot threes, layups, and free throws. This was the shot chart from the Rockets from 2016 to 2020. As you can see, they don't care about shooting anything that's not a three or a layup. And as crazy as this may seem, it actually caused them to be one of the greatest offenses of all time. Unfortunately for the Rockets, they ran into the Warriors every single year. So even though they were one of the best offenses ever, they could never make it to the finals. And just when it seemed like their time was running out, they made a trade that would completely shock everyone.
Atlanta gets the center, Clint Capella.
The Rockets were going all in on their new small ball offense, trading their only center away and instead having a 6'5" PJ Tucker play center. This way, no matter what, everyone that was on the court was able to shoot the ball. Now, while James Harden and Steph Curry were changing how basketball was played, the rest of the NBA was finally catching up. From 2016 to 2020, threes attempted kept growing every year, 24.1, 27, 29, 32, and 34.1. In just 4 years, teams were attempting 10 more threes per game, and scoring also went up from 102.7 points in 2016 all the way up to 111.8 points per game in 2020. The very next year in 2021, history would be made. Ray Allen was the greatest shooter the NBA had ever seen. He retired in 2014 with 2,973s made, a record most people thought would never be broken. But not only did Steph beat it, he destroyed Ray Allen's record in 500 less games.
Here's Curry for the record. It's good! And there it is! Stephen Curry, the all-time three-point king of the NBA!
When you take a look at Steph Curry's career stats, his three-point shot attempts have grown an insane amount every single year. He went from shooting 4 a game in 2009 to 8 in 2014, all the way up to 12 threes a game this year. The only other player in double digits is Luka Doncic. The 2022 NBA season was the most threes teams averaged in 1 year. On average, teams were shooting 35.2 threes per game. The Timberwolves averaged the most with 41 a game, and Steph and the Warriors were third with 39.4. 2023 teams were shooting 34.2 threes a game, and fast forward to present day, teams are shooting exactly 35 threes per game. The last 2 years are also tied with the most points ever averaged in 1 year, with teams scoring 114.7 points per game. Not only are teams scoring more points, but the 2023-24 season has brought us the top 5 offenses of all time. The Celtics, Pacers, Thunder, Clippers, and Bucks all have a better offense than the Kings, who beat the record last year. In fact, out of the top 27 offenses in NBA history, only 7 are from 2021, and the rest are from 2022 and 2023. At first, the three-point shot was made to bring new life into the NBA, but instead, it revolutionized how the game was played. From teams only shooting 2.8 threes a game in 1979, all the way up to teams averaging 41 a game in today's NBA. A league that was once dominated by big men now sees 6-foot guards dominating the game all by themselves. This one line created a new way to play offense. It created the greatest team of all time, and it created one of the best players to ever play the game.